Men's basketball team took down Georgetown earlier this week ahead of a huge matchup against UConn. The women's basketball team splits a series versus DePaul after playing 3 games in 5 days. And baseball and softball season is just getting started at the Hall. Can the men's and women's teams keep up this momentum to make a tournament push? What is the season looking like for baseball and softball? All this and more when we return. My name is Liam Harding, and this is Hall Talk. Hello and welcome back again to Hall Talk. My name is Liam Harding, and alongside me today is my analyst, Judaea Ingram. Now, Judy, it's getting close. We're ticking down here at the end of February, but everyone's talking about March Madness. But before we do that, we got to talk about the men's basketball team, especially their last outing against Georgetown. The men's team, playing one of the bottom dwellers of this whole Big East conference, only was able to barely scrape by. What are some of your thoughts on the overall performance of that game?
I would say one of the biggest flaws we saw in this game was the defense for this game against Georgetown. Georgetown, most of the time they held between 0% from three-point line. It seems towards the end they actually were able to let up 6 3-pointers, which actually let Georgetown come back into the game, which is why they only won by 8 points. But we still saw some good things where you have players like al-Amir, who's kind of coming out of his shell in these past few games, and also Tyrese Samuel, who had his second double-double. So there was some flaws where it's like this is a game that you expect them to blow out and be able to something to make them get momentum for the next coming games. But they got a win, and a win is a win. So I think those are some good things.
Yeah, you definitely talked about the defense right there. With under 5 minutes left in the game, they were up by at most of 15. Mm-hmm. And then I was watching the game, and next thing I know, they're down by 3. And that starts on the defensive end. Some players got into some foul trouble. Femi Odekale got into some serious foul trouble right there. But overall, the defense was kind of the struggle, especially down the stretch. And even in the beginning of the game, it was a close game at the half. But al-Amir has really stepped into his own right now after averaging about 11 points at Clemson, transferring here to the Hall. Started off kind of slow, but the last couple of games, he's really found his shot beyond the arc. He's been playing really well. And Tyrese Samuel, 15 and 10, had his 6th career double-double. So if he can keep him playing the way he's playing at a high level, especially against the dominant big man in this conference, I think we're in for a good setting leading up to March. That leads us to our next game. After upsetting them earlier this season, the Pirates are going to take the nice trip up to Connecticut to play UConn. Yes. So it's a tough one. We've 6-14 at UConn since 1988. So Judy, what do you think the outlook's looking like right now?
As you said, it was a really good game where we won 67-66 with that last second put back by KC. Once again, UConn is a ranked team, so I think it's going to be basically having played a really good perfect game, because even that 67-66, that was off a comeback. We were down by like 15, so it's going to have to be people like Al and Tyrese and Kadari to all be able to pitch in, even people like KC, who's been a little bit quiet since the last UConn game. So you're going to be able to have to step up the defense, going to be able to hit the three-point shot, not make as many turnovers as we did last game, and really try to play a almost near perfect game if we want to be able to upset UConn again.
Yeah, you're right there. I mean, it was a serious second-half comeback. We were down 26. We only scored 26 points in the first half, but in the second half, we were able to score 41 points, and they were able to hold UConn to 26 in the second half. And I think there's 3 main keys that allow the Pirates to upset. First and foremost, we need elite play from Kadari Richmond.
Yes.
He's been kind of in a little slump recently, and some people are speculating that might be that he's dealing with an ankle injury that he was dealing with earlier in the season. So if he's able to kind of get that under wraps, kind of play better and more dominant than he did in other games, that will be definitely very huge for us. Also, consistent three-point shooting from the whole team. The last time they played UConn, our 3 best three-point shooters, Jameer Harris, al-Amir, and Kadari Richmond, they shot a combined 2 from 14 from the 3. Richmond was 0-2, Harris 1 for 4, and Dawes an abysmal 1 for 8. He's been getting his shot back in rhythm, and I think that's definitely going to be big if he's able to knock down some shots. And then also, Dre Davis, if he's able to come back, that's going to be a big one for the Pirates. The bench has been playing really well. Coach Holloway's been talking about that. Tay Davis, Trey Jackson, and Jameer Harris. But they need that little offensive push that Dre's been given in the recent games he played, especially also from shooting behind the arc. He was 100% the last 2 games. Granted, it's a small sample size.
Yeah.
One game he shot 1-3, the other game he shot 2. But still, 100%, having that confidence, definitely could be huge. And not just that, like this UConn game split a little bit of rivalry with the Pirates, but not only that, it kind of can help lead us into the March Madness where we're currently sitting on this bubble. So Judy, after suffering a loss to Villanova, which we should have won, what do you think the Pirates have to do to get into the tournament?
As you said, we have to, it sounds simple, but we have to win. You got to win each and all these games. You got to be able to beat these top teams to show that we should be in the bubble. So it definitely starts with this game against UConn. If we can win this game, that kind of puts our name out. And like you said, the players that need to step up. And even when you mentioned Dre Davis, who is our 4th best scorer, he's kind of that another offensive push that we have for this team. So hopefully he will be able to be in there to kind of help space out the floor with 3-point shots and even be a body for the defensive end, which he is, being able to be in the paint or guard the guard. So definitely winning these next 2 games, who we have against top-ranked teams, will show that, hey, we're here and we should be in the tournament.
I agree with you right there. I think when looking down the breakdown of the quad 1 through 4 wins, we'd be in a whole different position if the Pirates didn't lose to Siena during the Thanksgiving holiday. That's a quad 3 loss. They're currently 4-1, and that 1 loss is Siena, which isn't doing so well. So out of these next 4 games, 3 of which are against quad 1 teams, Providence, Xavier, and UConn. So if we're able to, I think the 2 main wins that that's definitely possible is Villanova at home. Villanova's a Q3 this year. It's a close game at Nova. I think it's supposed to be upper level seating. It's supposed to be selling out about 10,000. So I think that game is going to be a good one. And then Xavier, even though they're playing really well as of late, especially in that close game last night to Marquette, they're without Zach Fremantle, a big player from last year. He's still out. He's been out for a couple weeks. But also Cam Kraft, as of last night, is out with a knee injury for at least 3 weeks. So that is right up in our window of when the Pirates will play in the Big East tournament and play Xavier at home. So if they're able to beat those 2 games and then even go 2-2 against Providence and UConn or squeak out a win there, I think that definitely bolsters the chances of the Pirates making the March Madness. And even if they don't, I think that a win at the Big East tournament definitely could help.
Yeah, definitely need to take advantage of these injuries, being able to try to get up a little win streak, because looking at just Seton Hall and overall, we've had the biggest streak we have was a 4-game win streak. Other than that, we've been a lot of back and forth between teams. So I feel like a really good thing to do is to be able to have a streak going on and try to build that momentum. So going 2-2, hopefully maybe in 3-1, 4-0 would be really good. We just need to try to have these win streaks and not going constantly back and forth between wins and losses between teams.
Yeah, you said it best there. Now kind of shifting gears, looking at the women's team. They came in with a lot of buzz, made the WNIT.
Yes.
Their goal is hopefully to make March, but in order to do that, you gotta look back. Last night, they suffered a heartbreaking loss to DePaul, who they beat earlier in the week on Monday. Judy, what are some of your thoughts of that, the performance last night?
Looking at the game, it was a very close game. It was back and forth constantly, where you see Seton Hall's on top, and then DePaul comes back. And it was the last-minute stretch where DePaul was able to go on a run and beat out this team. And then you even have someone like Sydney Cooks, who scored 1,000 points, and then you even have Azana Baines, who kind of made her breakout performance with 29 points. So a lot of players scored and did very well, but weren't able to get the win, even though we just won a couple of days. But it is hard to playing, 3 games in the last 5 days. That is a lot of pressure on a team, especially traveling to it.
Yeah, especially because the team wasn't even supposed to play DePaul originally on the schedule on Monday. That was a makeup game because of DePaul not being able to have enough scholarship players a few weeks ago. So if that game doesn't happen, it happens when it's supposed to, it might be a different story. But still, the loss is the loss. But they have a really good chance to kind of get back on track, especially they play Xavier on Saturday.
Yes.
In a big game. And then they also play Butler, 2 of the, lack of a better word, the worst teams in the conference right now. So what do you think the outlook is for the Xavier game on Saturday?
The Xavier game should be a sense of a confidence boost for Seton Hall because they are nearly last in the conference. They are on a 15-game losing streak. They are 0-16 in the Big East. These are all goals, or these are all points to show that you should win this game against Xavier. They should be able to, where you amp up your defense, amp up your offense, give yourself a little streak between these two games, between Xavier and Butler. It feels like a little break before you have to go against number 14, Villanova. So even with Xavier, they average 17 turnovers per game. Their top scorer averages 11 points per game. It's just everything is pointing towards Seton Hall. It could be a lot of pressure for you to win because everyone's expecting them to. So I expect some type of a blowout because last time they went against Xavier, they won 74-55, shooting only like 13% from the three. So shooting so poorly and still being on a blotted team shows that you're much better. And Xavier is not showing that they've gotten any much better since that last game.
And especially since that last game, we've had some players, especially Sydney Cooks and Lauren Parker Lane, on a tear.
Yes.
As you said, Sydney Cooks hit 1,000 points last night against DePaul. And doing some research, she did that in less than 2 seasons, which is pretty impressive.
Yes.
Only playing in 37 games as a Pirate. She's now the 25th Pirate to don the uniform and score 1,000 points. But I think this game, these next 2 games, looking forward, can also help set up a good resume booster and confidence to help with March and Big East seeding. And especially because last year we had Andrea Espinosa-Hunter, Sydney Cooks, and Lauren Parker Lane, a big 3-headed monster. Any one of them on any night could score really well, and
Yeah.
the teams would do really well. And the supporting cast last year really worked with that. This year, you lose Andrea Espinosa-Hunter, yes, but you get an insanely better supporting cast off the bench, the starting lineup, and just they're not really performing that well. And I think these next 2 games can kind of help perform these other players. Like, for example, Shaylin Hagens had 22 at Providence. Jayla Jordan had 19 against UConn. She had a really good game against UCF, but it's not as consistent. Last night, the bench for the Pirates only had 10 points, and they all came from Alexia Lesh. So these next 2 games, they can kind of get the bench going, and that can propel them forward with Big East tournament play coming up, and hopefully a bid in either the March Madness or WNIT.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about because starting the season, it seemed the Seton Hall women's basketball was going on a tear. They went on a 7-game win streak, and then coming to the new year, they go on a 4-game losing streak, then go on a 4-game winning streak, and now they've just been going back and forth between wins and losses, and it kind of makes you think, like, what happened between the new year and last year where we just haven't been able to perform as well as we did in those first couple games in the season.
Yeah, Saturday's game against Xavier, senior night, it's just definitely going to be a big test for the Pirates because, as you said, a team that doesn't have much to prove is always very dangerous, and Xavier has nothing much to prove, and the Pirates have a lot to lose.
Exactly.
So now kind of shifting gears, February's almost over, we're going into March, and weather's getting nicer, which means baseball and softball will be starting.
Yes, it is.
And softball actually started their tournament play last week. They went 0-2 against Sanford and Southern Mississippi. They were supposed to play 2 other games, one against Sanford, one against Southern Mississippi, but the weather down there in Mississippi wasn't that great. So what do you think the performance so far for the softball team looks?
I'm sure it's not as ideal going 0-2, but once again, beginning of the season, everyone's getting prepared, but they still have good players, good seniors veterans to kind of help them push between these next couple of games. But with the weather, I'm sure that kind of mixed things up. So definitely not ideal what you want, but it's just the beginning, getting your feet wet. You're starting to see kind of like what you're doing, so it's okay. But not the strongest start, but it's just the beginning, so you can go up from here.
Yeah, 2 losses is 2 losses, but when you look at it, they only lost 1 game, 2-1 against Southern Miss, and only lost by 1 run against Sanford. But they also had some strong pitching. Against Sanford, Shelby Smith pitched 7 innings with 8 strikeouts, and against Southern Mississippi, Kelsey Carr had 10 strikeouts and only allowed 2 hits in 8 innings, also in 8 innings pitched. So I think with this pitching staff and getting comfortable with each other, always new players, new faces, new opportunities, is going to be something that gets used to. But they also have another big test this weekend. They're playing in the Presbyterian Invitational, which features 3 teams, IUPUI, App State, and Presbyterian. Presbyterian is a big task to face as they beat Syracuse from the ACC, which is when you beat one of these teams from any of the big conferences as a smaller conference team. It really puts like an exclamation point on that. Talking about this weekend, though, the baseball team, the Pirates head down to Chapel Hill for beautiful weather there right now for a 3-game series against UNC last season. They went 0-3 against the Tar Heels, and I know as a as a native UNC,
As a native Tar Heel
as a
fan
native
myself,
Tar Heel fan, you
yes.
have some like mixed feelings about that. What do you think about the Pirates right now?
Pirates, I would say it's going to be a very hard game. Last year is not a good resume for them, but I don't know if I'm very hopeful that they'll be able to beat the Tar Heels, especially going 14-0 and losing almost every time. So it's going to be a tough test, but anything can happen. They're going to Chapel Hill. I'm sure they have some type of confidence. It's the first game, and they'll try their best to see what comes in the output.
Yep, and that's a big test for the Pirates. But that's going to wrap us here for Hall Talk today. Again, I'm Liam Harding. This is Judaea Ingram, and thank you for watching.